Anything technical, it's in my court usually.
Yeah, we should probably talk about your multi-chain plans, but I don't know if we should make that one of these questions. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, should we wait? I guess we're live now, so I should probably introduce myself.
No, all right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam MacDonald, CTO at Garage Studios, and we're presently working on the game Dissolution. You may or may not have heard of us, but it's a sci-fi MMORPG where you can collect crypto assets. And, right now it's pretty basic, but we have an alpha. It's free to play. It's on Steam if you have Windows. Go check it out.
Thanks, Adam. And I'm Alex Atala, CTO of OpenSea. But this AMA is about Dissolution. OpenSea is a marketplace for non-fungible tokens and other crypto assets. And we're really excited to learn more about Dissolution, one of my favorite blockchain games. I'm really looking forward to the Android app and also to just seeing all the updates from the community, which has picked up and been really strong despite, a lot of people not having access to the game yet. So it's got one of the most incredible shows of graphics I've seen ever in blockchain space, and even in just gaming in general. It's got also a theme that I think is really core to the blockchain space, which is space and mining and building economies in space. So, this is I've seen people go crazy building space and procedural generated games and MMOs in space because it's a very difficult nut to crack, and it's something that a lot of mainstream developers have not gotten right. Lots of examples in the news about this. So this is ambitious, and
Yes.
we're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So first question, what's your background prior to working on Dissolution?
Honestly, on paper, not very impressive. I used to work at a local studio here. We mostly did contract work for kids' video games, so Nickelodeon, Pixar, Disney. They'd contract us to make end-to-end solutions. They'd just say, here's the game we want, here's the budget. We would make it. So I started as a QA tester. I did a little bit of development and stuff with that. Unfortunately, they ended up going bankrupt in 2016. So I ended up kind of pivoting to doing my own thing. I made my own video game called Escape Sierra Leone. It wasn't that successful, but it was at least a break-even company, made back my money, and it taught me a lot about how to make a video game. After that, I kind of took a break to work at Mercedes-Benz, of all things, because I'm a huge car guy, and then ended up getting recruited by Houston when I delivered him a pizza, and that's where I've been since, just working on Dissolution since about 2018.
Wait, how did you deliver him a pizza?
I have a side job where I deliver pizzas too. I still do it to this day, actually. I just like getting out my car. It's electric, so I like to just drive around, deliver a couple pizzas.
Wow, this is like a snow crash.
It's a very odd medium story. And the craziest thing is, since I worked at Mercedes, I drove his car off the truck, and I recognized it in the driveway and started chatting about it. I said, oh, that's a C63, pretty nice car. I drove that one. And we ended up, he invited me to his party he was having, and we talked about gaming and a couple other things, blockchain, and ended up working together.
Wow, I hope there's going to be a ship that looks like this truck in the game. Pretty significant. So second, what priorities or skill sets do you guys have as a team that you're bringing to the blockchain gaming space that you don't think the average team has?
I mean, honestly, most of our team is very young and not that experienced, but what we do really bring is we like to move very fast and make rapid decisions. So it's just the classic startup benefit of being able to make those quick on-the-fly changes that you need to do in order to survive in such a flexible and crazy market like blockchain, for example. But the other big thing that we have is we have been, really focused on trying to get that user friendliness and lower that barrier to entry as much as possible. Because right now we think the barrier to entry is just too high, and we want to bring that down as much as possible so regular gamers can come in.
Kind of on that note, have you seen any moments where you saw a user just suddenly get it? And what did that feel like?
Yes, we have a user in Bosnia, and as some of you might know, Bosnia had some trouble about 3 decades ago, and never quite recovered financially. And we had a user who's a regular gamer, who's really skilled. His name is Shara. I love you, Shara, if you're listening to this by chance. He's a diehard fan. He came in like within a few days of us releasing, and when he made his first 15 euros by selling a Dissolution item back with Engine, I could see for him he just like suddenly got it. Like he's used to regular games where you put money in, they're trying to milk you like a cash cow, and they realized, hold on, I didn't pay anything for Dissolution. I made 15 euros, and I could just tell he was like, okay, I'm interested. Tell me more about this blockchain thing. Before he was like, blockchain, scam. But that kind of, I saw the perception shift.
Makes a lot of sense. Selling your first thing is a huge gotcha moment.
Exactly. That really it changes the paradigm completely.
Yeah, and it's not like a typical gotcha tactic. It's quite the opposite.
Exactly. It's not a gimmick, right?
Yeah. So what do you think is different, aside from that, what do you think is different about the blockchain gaming ecosystem and like the blockchain community compared to traditional gaming?
The biggest difference like right now I see is there's a massive focus on speculation. So in crypto gaming, it's very common for people to own assets for a game they don't play. And we notice this is a very interesting trend with Dissolution. I'm sure other games too in the crypto space is lots of people who own our items don't play our game. Like I'm talking, they might have 0 hours played, not even just like 1 hour, 2 hours, like no hours played, but they hold potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in items. So that's a different shift. You can see the speculator mindset with that, whereas you would never see someone in the conventional gaming space that buys items for a game they don't play, right? There's no speculative value to those items.
So how does that affect the decisions you make when you're building the game? And just the fact that lots of your item holders are not going to be interacting with it.
Yeah, it's really a balancing act because you want to still, of course, make it a fun game, but you want to also provide value to these users who are spending lots of money on your items. So, like as you might not know, I'm sure you've heard of the DFTs before, the Dissolution Founders tokens. Those are probably one of our hottest selling assets. I think on OpenSea they're trading for $7, $8 right now. We initially sold them for around $2, and we had to design them in a way that they'll provide benefits to you, but we didn't want it to be like some other games where it's just kind of like they print money and they just airdrop you money every month if you have these tokens, because that just kind of floods your economy and devalues your currency. So we wanted to make it so if you actually play the game, you get in-game benefits for having DFTs. So we try and incentivize those DFT holders to come in, play the game, earn some DIS, but you actually have to play the game to get it. So we've had to make quite a few hard design decisions around that.
That makes sense. Well, we're all used to AMAs where all the questions are all positive and fluffy. So I wanted to
hit me hard.
Change the tone a little bit and go into some critical questions, not just about blockchain games in general. So first, what do you dislike about the current blockchain gaming space? What do you think could be improved?
I think there is, I see why, but I think there is too much focus, like I was saying in the last point, on speculative value and just trying to promise people the world with, how this is going to make you money. And I'm not going to say scams, but like definitely some shady tactics with trying to sell some tokens. And I understand why that exists, but that's probably one of the least appealing parts to me personally.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. I think Dissolution's graphics are, like I said, miles ahead of most blockchain games. But do you feel like that is paying off for you guys? Do you feel like the communities that you've encountered appreciate it? And why or why not?
Honestly, I would say it has not paid off so far, at least in terms of if you're talking DAU or like, player attention. Graphics are great for drawing people in, making our trailers look amazing. The initial bite is very strong, but at the end of the day, I always describe as like an attractive person who has a very boring personality. You're probably gonna get bored with them pretty quick. So I would say graphics are a big plus in some ways, but also a big negative because it increases development costs, development time, et cetera, and most importantly, it makes it so other users, like for example, you don't actually play Dissolution because I think you have a Mac, you said.
Yeah.
And making a Mac build that actually can work on a MacBook Air is a lot different than making a build that can run on a Windows PC with a 1080 or a 2080 graphics card in there. So definitely there's some issues with accessibility, and that's kind of why we're now working on this Android mobile app and hopefully coming to iOS in the future.
Love that. Kind of a follow-up question there. Well, what have you experimented with for generating revenue? What's been the most successful thing for you guys so far?
So we had our DFT sale, which was the highest grossing sale, and that was the Founders Tokens. And we did something a little different than most games. The Founders Tokens are really low value, but like high volume. There's 100,000 total supply. We sold 15,000 of them over about 14 hours, I think it was. It was like half a day. And it was $2 per token, so much cheaper than the regular Founders Token prices.
So that was $30,000 in 14 hours?
Yeah, it's about 30,000. So definitely the most successful in terms of like gross money earned. We also had some skin sales. We experimented with aesthetics, but as we learned, people don't really care that much because, like I said earlier, they don't actually play the game that much. So if you don't play the game, you probably don't care what color your gun is. Pretty straightforward. So our skin sale definitely wasn't very successful. I think it was around $7,000 total, and $2,500 of that was the God tier skin we sold, which I think you might recall because it was on OpenSea and it was on an auction. I think we're up to like $2,500 US. And then, it was not really a great return on investment, being honest, because it cost us a lot of money to make that, more than we made off selling it. And we learned that skins, honestly, and aesthetics don't tend to appeal. People are looking for that utility. They're looking for speculative value. So skins are the least successful. And then the last sale we had most recently was the ship sale. It was pretty successful. We had a really small target. We wanted to just kind of do a tester. We sold about $10,000 worth of ships on our site in OpenSea, and it sold out in about 42 minutes, give or take. OpenSea, I think, had a couple, because of gas prices and transaction times, I think it was more like 2 or 3 hours to sell out on OpenSea. And now they're all trading for, 2-3x pretty much what they sold. So it was a pretty big success. I think that was about $10,000 in gross revenue from that one.
Wow. So that also kind of answers my next question, which was what's been the least successful project that you guys have done. So you'd say that's the aesthetic skins.
Yeah, skins definitely was a non-starter. Could just be our execution, but I honestly think it was just the lack of utility value that skins provide.
And this is going to be kind of an obvious question for anyone who knows Dissolution well, but worth going into. What's the utility of the ships?
Right. So currently in the game, you have to lease ships. So you rent them on a per-use basis, and you pay that in-game currency. So it's not like it's real money or anything at this point. However, we are working on a new system that's going to let you actually lease tokens to other players. So in the future, these leases will be fulfilled by people who own the ships and then can rent them out to other players. So right now, the ships allow you to avoid the lease fees that we charge, but in the future will allow you to avoid lease fees that other players charge.
Makes sense. I've got to ask, given the current gas prices, anything you want to go into with what you guys are going to do to help players make faster transactions?
Yes, we're currently talking with a couple other crypto solutions, but honestly, for the time being, we're looking to kind of improve and change up our current hybrid system. As you guys might know, we have a hybrid system, so there's the blockchain element, we call it Ascension. You can take a token off our blockchain, off our database, sorry, put it on the blockchain. We're looking to kind of just improve that, like allow players to trade on that system, because currently you can't. You have to trade using, the regular fashion Ethereum, which is slow and very expensive right now. So we're looking to kind of just allow off-chain trading and possibly a second layer solution, but I can't say too much about that at the moment, not to be too secretive, but we're looking at different solutions, because we left Engine, and now we're just trying to find out how do we address these critical issues, because the gas fees are frankly just killing the trading. And forget about low value trades. Like if you want to sell a DFT, like one DFT, $8, gas fee $10. It's pretty brutal. So we're really focused on just trying to improve the hybrid system. And the analogy I give is it's like electric vehicles. We had Tesla, and now Tesla's dominating. We've all seen that. Mm-hmm. But before Tesla, we had the Toyota Prius, which is not very sexy, but it does work. And it does kind of bring the electrification in. So that's where we see our hybrid system is. We believe in blockchain, but there has to be a stepping stone where it's the database is really a big chunk of it. And then there's the blockchain on top. But the blockchain only really helps with the high value items at this point.
Ascension. I really like that term. Very expensive to do right now.
I have to give credit to Andy for that. Andy from, I think he's at Zaya now, but he gave us that term, so props to him.
Lower the cost of enlightenment. That's what they. That's what they told you in medieval churches in Europe. So lastly, then we got to get to audience questions. What are the best resources for game developers looking to follow in your footsteps?
Now there's definitely a lot more great resources. Unreal Engine 4, first off, amazing engine, fantastic, and it's so cheap, it's unbelievable. I remember the old days when I think Unreal 3 cost like 1.5 million US to get a license for. So that's great, and it has a bunch of documentation. If you're a crypto developer, there's also a bunch of plugins now. I think there's like Etherlinker for Unreal Engine, so you can actually link directly to the blockchain and read items and transactions. So there's a wealth of information out there. I'm self-taught. I dropped out of college after 1 year, big dropout. I say just learn on YouTube. You don't need to go to school for it, so use the internet.
Learn on YouTube. Do you have any specific channels you'd recommend?
Honestly, I still do this to this day. I'll cop to it. I just type in my problem. I don't have a specific channel. It's just kind of I'll filter through and find out what looks best for what I'm trying to do at that moment. So if I'm trying to make a procedural level, how to make procedural levels in Unreal Engine 4, boom, and I just kind of watch a few videos on it and find the one that's the best.
And you type it directly into YouTube?
Directly into YouTube. Sometimes I'll Google it too, but honestly, YouTube has like a wealth of information. So,
have you found any YouTube videos that explain how to use Etherlinker or any Unreal Engine blockchain related tools?
I personally have the blockchain side of things, and that's kind of more experimental. So that you might be able to find videos now, but it's more difficult for us. We actually had to build our solution from the ground up. So our hybrid solution is all made in-house. We didn't have Etherlinker at the time. So I can't really speak to Etherlinker and the more specific options. I just know they exist. So you guys don't have to worry about the whole trouble that we went through.
When you got started with Unreal Engine, or actually, I think we talked about this a little bit before we went live. It'd be good to go into it a bit more. What's the best platform, Unity, Unreal Engine, to get started with? What gotchas do people need to look out for when doing things like launching on the App Store or on Google Play, and also related to making in-game transactions? Right.
So first question with what engine's the best. It really is kind of like saying what personal vehicle is the best. Well, it really depends what you want to do. So if you want to do a AAA quality or close to it kind of game, like say you want to make like Dissolution, I would recommend obviously Unreal Engine. I am biased, I can admit that, but it's probably the one that dominates the industry. If you're more mobile focused, Unity has a lot of perks. It's if you prefer C#, it's obviously a better choice. It depends. Like, do you want to make mobile or do you want to make high fidelity graphics? Is kind of the real question. There's CryEngine too. I used to use CryEngine back then. I think it's now called Lumberyard. Amazon bought it for $1 billion or something. CryEngine's beautiful. It looks great. You've probably heard of Star Citizen. They use CryEngine. It can let you make crazy open worlds really easy. The problem with CryEngine is you better have a huge budget, because I started developing my project with it, like Escape Sierra Leone back in the day, and it is it's way too much for one person or even a small team. I think, in my opinion, you need to have a proper team, funding. It's not indie friendly, so avoid that one unless you have big pockets full of cash.
And why is that?
The development for it's a lot less user friendly. There's a lot less support, a lot less videos. You can't just go to YouTube and look up things. It's not a lot of people developing with it. So it's kind of like these top tier industry people use it, and very few of them. And they're not the kind of people who go on YouTube and make help videos. They're busy developing. They couldn't care less about, contributing to the ecosystem. So CryEngine's kind of like the old way style of doing things for gaming, where like, it was back when they buy the license for the engine and you would just, develop it in a vacuum pretty much. And now it's, Unreal Engine's shifted the new way, which is a very community focused engine. It's actually worked on by the community. There's like, I think over 100 people contribute to their GitHub and help develop the engine itself. So it's much more community driven.
Would you say community support is one of the biggest factor that made you guys pick Unreal?
Community support and like graphical fidelity. Unreal has like PBR, which is like physically based rendering. So the lighting system's based on like more realistic variables, whereas Unity has kind of an old style, like flat. I think they have PBR now, but it's honestly not as good, and you cannot get the same graphical results out of Unity as you can from Unreal for the same amount of time.
Same amount of developer time.
Yeah, development time, which is money essentially, right? So.
Right. Have you ever tried making, I guess, like if a developer were getting started with Unreal, what components can they just buy without having to build themselves? Like, how do you get started making the components to your game?
Right. Well, as I'm sure most of you are aware, Unreal and Unity, I think even CryEngine now have marketplaces. So you can buy pre-made assets, and that really encompasses any kind of assets. Like, we even open admitted we use a lot of marketplace assets for art. So like, some armor, some barrels, like levels. You can find pieces and components to make levels, for example. And all these are available for really cheap. Like, I think Unreal Marketplace, the cheapest assets are around $5, and the max one's like $200 or $300 US. So in the grand scheme of things, it's extremely cheap. And there's also code samples, code snippets. So you can buy anything. And of course, this has led to an influx of like, they're called asset flips, where it's just like a game that it's not even, you didn't make anything. You just put it to the marketplace, you bought an asset pack or two, and you directly just drop that in and call it a day. You're like, yep, this is my game. So there is literally turnkey solutions that are almost entire, very simple games. Like, they're not like, great games, but they're like a high school project that is really well polished. So there's some pretty impressive stuff on there.
And you guys said you bought, are there any, like, you guys said you use some for art?
Yes. So like, you can buy like, say, like pieces of levels, like segments to build a level. And you can buy these art assets. All the code for Dissolution is pretty much written by me. I didn't want to use any asset packs because most of them are kind of lazily made. And the code is really bad. So you have scaling issues. You get a lot of technical debt as you try to scale up. So
what kind of code is in an asset pack?
You'd be surprised. Some of them are pretty advanced. Like, for example, there's one where like it's a gun pack, a bunch of different guns, and you can pretty much drop in and play, and it's essentially like Call of Duty level. Like, obviously not as good, not as polished, but there's reloading the gun, firing the gun, aim down sights, a bunch of functionality. Most of it's not done very well, in my opinion, and it usually doesn't work in multiplayer. There's no replication. So, you know, it's not like it's going to be great, but you'd be surprised how much stuff is out there, like how much turnkey solutions. Well, they appear turnkey, but like I said, the problem is if you get too reliant on these asset packs, especially code-wise, the code base will become a mess. So,
are there any brands known for making really high-quality components, or are there any companies where all they're doing is making game components?
There are definitely some companies doing this. Most of them are Russian or Ukrainian or other Eastern Bloc countries. You know, with the income's not as high, and so for them selling an asset pack for $300, it could be like a monthly salary or half a monthly salary. So there's some very talented Russian artists. I forget their names, so I can't plug them right now, but there are some art companies from the Eastern Russia area, and they do like crazy good work. Like it's like almost AAA, 99%, I would say AAA.
Gotcha. Do you guys don't have an ERC20 token, correct?
That's a good question. So we have an ERC20 that we minted. This is like back in the ICO, end of ICO craze, like 2018. One of the first things we did was mint a ERC20, but we never actually implemented it. And we have plans to in the future, but right now we're kind of worried about liquidity issues and having, you know, too much selling pressure essentially. So we haven't actually implemented it just yet, but we do have plans to at a certain point. So you can look up on Etherscan. I think it's called DIS, the ticker, and it is an ERC20.
Yes.
Oh, and I'll point out GDC. We're at GDC 2019, Game Developer Conference in San Fran, and we gave out business cards with a QR code that's a private key for I think it was 300 wallets. So 300 wallets of DIS token are out there, and those are all from GDC pretty much. So we gave away some DIS.
Currently no use in the game, but you're planning on something.
No, you can see it in your balance, but because it's an ERC, you can't actually spend it because we can't take it away from you. But it's funny because you can actually see your balance incremented by it, but you just can't use it. So we're still trying to figure out how that could potentially work. You're probably gonna have to like desend it, like take it off the blockchain, put it on our database. But there's a couple of technical problems we have to figure out.
Interesting. Well, great. Thanks so much, Adam. I think that's all our questions. We'll let Serena take over, and happy Wednesday.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Alex. Happy Wednesday.
Thank you so much, Adam and Alex, for doing this Ask Me Anything call, the first of our series at the BGA Game Alliance, Blockchain Game Alliance. So thank you to our sponsors for hosting this talk, and thank you, Alex, for moderating it. We'll follow up any comments from the audience on Twitter, so please feel free to send over your question, and we'll get Adam to tell us more about Dissolution and anything coming up with the game. Once again, thank you so much for joining this talk, and thank you everyone watching. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.